Yeah, I was born in the Philippines. My mom's Filipina and my dad's Italian. So I was born in the Philippines. I stayed there for 3 months, and then I moved to Italy. Also, part of growing up in Italy was being Catholic. That was a big part of just being in Italy. There was not any personal relationship with the Lord. That was not something I ever heard of, I ever experienced. Even people just really praying and having some sort of connection with God. In Sicily, there's just not much financial opportunities, and so that's where we moved to America. We had a family member, a distant family member on my mom's side that was living in New Jersey. I continued my sacraments with the Catholic Church. It didn't really mean too much to me. It was just really kind of part of my identity. But how I specifically came to know the Lord was in college. I was going to Rutgers University. I was actually part of a fraternity, very much involved into partying and just trying to live my life and find fulfillment in that. But I was very actually empty when I was doing that. And then my brother Alessandro actually had come to know the Lord. And it was interesting when eventually he started sharing with me and my family just about Jesus. And so then little by little, as I started looking into it, eventually the Lord got a hold of my heart, and I became a believer that way. Something that actually really hit me right away when I became a Christian was the verse Ephesians 2:8-9. It says, "For by grace you have been saved through faith, that you can't earn your way to heaven. It's a gift of God." And I remember I was really angry about that because I never came across that, at least my personal experience in my time in the Catholic Church. And so I was really upset that I never had the chance to, I feel properly say yes or no to the gospel. And as I was thinking about that, I felt the Holy Spirit telling me Santei, if you've never heard this message before, how many of your people back home in Italy have never heard it? And so that's for me also kind of how it started my call eventually to when I go back to Italy and minister to Italians. And so I finished my college degree and still praying and seeing if opportunities would open up to serve in Italy. But actually nothing opened up after I graduated, and so I did an internship for a really long time, for 5 years with my church. And as I think faithfully served the Lord in my time of waiting, eventually the Lord opened up an opportunity to serve at this church.
Right around the time I was born, both my parents came to the Lord right around that time. So I was raised in a Christian home. I mean, they were still figuring out their own faith, but it was really good in the sense that they would always explain to me if I had questions or anything like that. And so I was really young. I was probably 7 when I decided I wanted Jesus in my heart. That's all I knew. I think probably when I was in middle school, it became a little bit more real to me. I recognized I'm actually a sinner. I actually need God. I also felt I wanted to be a missionary, but I feel the image of missionary that was always presented was in Africa, in India, or whatever, which I was yeah, that'd be cool too, but I didn't have a specific calling to a specific place. My dad's side of my family is Italian, so my great-grandparents come from this town in southern Italy called Avellino. And so when I was in college, I had the opportunity to study abroad, and so I went to Italy. I actually was in Florence, which is in the north. But I was hey, I'm in Italy, I might as well try to go find my relatives in the south. Really fell in love with the family there, but then as I was getting to know them, I basically found out that they're all atheists, and so it was kind of the Lord used that situation and other situations during my time studying abroad to call me to go back to Italy.
It was me, Amanda, and this other girl. We were recruited to work with the college, with the university there at Salerno. So for me, I remember when I first met Amanda, I thought, she was very pretty, and honestly saw a sister in Christ. I was oh, it'd be cool to just be friends with her. But at one point, our boss had asked us to share our stories about just our families and, also how we kind of came to know the Lord. And I remember when she was sharing her story, she started talking about all the foster siblings she had and just her family dynamics. And it literally went from she's pretty cute to oh wow, she's really pretty, I really got drawn to her. I felt scales fell from my eyes. And that's when I think the initial spark started for me.
So I think as soon as I found out that I'm gonna be doing this internship and there's this other guy who's already signed up to do the internship, I was like, oh, that's interesting. Just me and this other guy like signed up to do this internship together, and I was like, Lord, what are you doing? For me at least, or maybe this is girls in general, like we need to see like a guy in like a lot of different elements, I guess, to like before you like actually like, okay, yes. And so I feel like doing this internship over like a year span of time, I got to see Santei in so many different situations, sharing the gospel, times when he was upset, times when he was happy, times when somebody did something to make him angry, you know, and I just saw how he responded in all those situations, and I feel like that was like, oh wow, like this is a really good like guy of character. I really like his personality. And then the Lord would also like make it happen where we would just be together like hanging out, where like I knew it wasn't him like forcing it wasn't me forcing it, and we just ended up just hanging out together. So basically a couple weeks after we got married, I started feeling sick. I had like pain in my back, I had swollen lymph nodes, and I was just tired all the time. It was probably like 6 months after we got married that we officially got like a biopsy, and then I got diagnosed with Hodgkin's lymphoma.
And it was very challenging, one, because it was right off the bat, you know, we feel like we still didn't even know how to like pick a couch, you know, for our house or anything, like, you know, and now we're making major life decisions, you know, how do you save her life, you know, what treatment do we choose?
The first like 6 months after getting diagnosed, we were doing this all natural therapy, which was extremely difficult, and that was definitely like the darkest season of my life. I think in the beginning it kind of started out as like doubt towards God, but then I was like, oh God, I know you're there, so that's not it. But like just wrestling with him of like, you know, well, if you're there, why aren't you helping me, kind of thing.
Because you know, everybody says if you have any cancer, this is the cancer to get, because you know the chemotherapy that they have set up usually knocks it off the first shot. And we tried it and it wasn't working, and so then we had to go to a specialist in Miami, and that was really scary too, because the specialist told us we had to start everything from scratch. They had to do biopsy again, they had to do a whole other line of like chemotherapy, and it was scary. I felt scared at that point too, because it was like, okay, it went from like a super high percentage of this working really well, which I think then went down to like 50-50 as to like, you know, whether this works or not. And that's a flip of a coin, you know, and I'm like, my wife either lives or dies at the flip of a coin, you know, like, and so that was really scary.
And I think one big thing that changed for me that I can remember is like my mom was just like really encouraging us to like get people to pray, and it seems obvious, and like, yeah, we should have been doing that. But at the same time, I think I just had this mentality of like, well, if God's gonna heal me, he's gonna heal me. Like, is it really like that important to have people pray? But she kept pushing the issue, and she would just like have people stop by the house and pray for me and like lay their hands on me and stuff. And then Santei like eventually like called like the literal elders of our church, came to our house a couple times, laid their hands on us and prayed over us. Like I saw like my mood and my just like the way that I was feeling just like really change. And then like Santei was saying, like my odds were a lot worse. Like it was now 50-50 or maybe even worse than that. But like I just felt so much more surrendered to God of like, okay, God, well, whatever you do, like you're gonna do. But like I just had a lot more peace and a lot more hope.
And so we went through the last line of treatment, and eventually after it was all said and done, Amanda was declared to be in remission and, you know, fully healed, and now he's just doing checkups.
I feel so much better. I mean, like a lot of times I forget, because I just feel like this is how I've always felt my whole life. I'm like, oh yeah, there was that 2 years there where I felt horrible, like, and I was just in pain all the time, and I would just like sit in the car and just like sleep because I couldn't do anything else.
And now, you know, she's got lots of energy and eats well. And now that Amanda's healed, we're trying to go back to Italy to fulfill the calling that we felt called to a long time ago. We knew we were called to Italy, but what specific city we weren't sure yet. And so we did a vision trip and we checked out different cities.
When we were doing the vision trip and we were in Bologna, we did like a prayer walk just to ask the Lord, like, where, you know, is this where he wants us to be? And then there's this like one graffiti that we walked by while we were doing the prayer walk, and it says like, the only church that shines is the one that burns, and it has like a drawing of an upside down cross.
it was very much like, wow, this seems very like against, you know, the gospel. And so we actually did some research on the city and found out that Bologna is actually called the Red State by the Italians, which means it's an affiliation with the communism, because communism actually spread towards northern Italy, specifically Bologna. And so it has those strong communist roots. And there's also a university, one of the oldest ones, I think, that's still running in the world. I believe it was running back during medieval times, and it continues to run to this day. And so when you have like a university in the middle of the city, very liberal thought, and then you mix that with the strong roots of communism within the city, that's really kind of like what drew us to want to minister to these people, because we want to be a church that shines, you know, with the gospel and also burns with the Holy Spirit and in that sense. And so we really wanted to minister to these people there. What we're going to be doing once we move there is actually we got connected with a church there called Nuova Speranza, which means New Hope, and we got to talking to the pastor and his wife. He's American and the wife is Italian. And we were talking to him, and we found out that the wife has actually been praying for help to help lead this church. And so this felt like a perfect fit where I could, you know, use my giftings of preaching and shepherding, but not as the main guy. And so that will be one area of focus that we'll be doing in Bologna. And another one, which is a little bit of random, but I've always loved combat sports. And so something I'm going to be using is actually boxing to reach non-Christians. I've been training at a boxing gym in Florida while I've been here in the States. And the coach is actually a new Christian. You know, we actually started talking and saying like, well, why don't we start like a Bible study in this gym? You know, we do the workout sessions, and then afterwards maybe we can do like a Bible study to reach the people there.
So I feel like during the whole cancer season, I really had a lot of time to pray and think and reflect. And I feel like the two things that kept coming up for me were doing worship and then doing recovery ministry. So recovery is a ministry that we've been part of at our church in Florida the whole time we've been in the States. And it's kind of like, it ranges from everything from addictions to anxiety, depression, marital struggles, everything. It's just a place where you can come and be known, be vulnerable, and talk about what's really going on in your life. And so I hope to disciple other women using those same tools from recovery. And then with worship, I feel like music's always been a way that I've connected with the Lord, and I can just kind of like hear his voice and sense his nearness, and I believe it's a gift that he's also given me, and so I want to use those gifts to also help out with the worship team at the church that we're going to be part of.
Yeah, so our plan is to go back end of December, early January, and what we need to do right now is we're raising financial support. We're raising $5,000 monthly, and we're actually at about 85% of that. So the Lord has provided abundantly, and so we're almost there. So here's how you guys can be praying for us. Obviously for the financial provision, but also another part is that we really would cover prayers to just have a great like godly couple that we can connect with when we move back to Italy, just for us, as you know, for our marriage, but also with just friendships, godly friendships there. Because to do ministry in Italy, you have to be there long term. A lot of people call Italy like the graveyard of missionaries, because missionaries come and go very quickly. The Italians also see that people sometimes come and they think they're on vacation, you know, but we want to be there as people that are rooted in community.
Yeah, I would just add prayer for just like divine blessing on our ministry, that, you know, we know that we are only so gifted, but like without God blessing us and like really making things happen, like we're not going to be effective, and we need the Lord to be preparing hearts of people before we even get there, so that way, yeah, just the things that we do actually have like true fruit that come out of it.